Hi, folks. It's me today. I have been going back and forth with one of your classmates about the assignment for this week, which is to find a story that represents public interest and to find a story that represents merely interesting. And she had some interesting comments and questions. So I thought I would do a quick video for everybody to talk through this a little bit. First, from a context perspective, this is perhaps the most important concept for you to get for the rest of the semester, because we are going to be doing almost every one of our assignments is going to be in the public interest / hard news category. So I want you to be able to tell the difference between stories that are merely interesting and ones that are really public interest, which in this case important to us as citizens. So I wanted to introduce you to this website that I use a lot. It's feedly.com, Feedly, Feedly.com. And what it does is aggregate things for you. And it can aggregate lots of different things, from news to blogs that you might want to follow, social media stuff, whatever you want. I have my Feedly account set up based on the things that I teach, and mostly revolve around journalism and media type stuff. So what I'm going to do is use my Feedly account and just go through the stuff that's on there today really quickly and talk about what would constitute, in my opinion, public interest and what would constitute merely interesting just based on this news feed. Okay, so the first category that I have things is ethics. I have a category called ethics, and I have things that roll up into here that are about journalism ethics. So let's just look at this. Pointers, Al Tompkins awarded prestigious honor by NPAA. I'm just going to look at headlines and do a gut level thing, but obviously you all would need to read the stories in order to explain to me why you think it's merely interesting or why you think it's public interest. In this case, I'm going to say that's merely interesting because he's a photojournalist and he just got an award, and that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things from a public interest perspective. New Media Advocacy Master's Program will equip students to change the world. Okay, that's interesting. It's just a new program that's out there. There's thousands of new programs. I don't think you could probably argue this one either way, and I would be fine with it if you could successfully argue it either way. I'm fine with that. The next one, don't name mass shooters, criminologist study advises media. I'd say that's public interest because we're seeing more and more mass shootings, and there's a lot of ethical decisions that need to come into play about whether or not you name the shooter or whether the shooter ends up getting a lot of publicity, which could then, influence other people who might be interested to do it just so they also get publicity. All right, let's skip down a little bit. The next one is, this is, more broad media kind of stuff. BAFTA Film Awards, those are merely interesting. John Dickerson to replace Charlie Rose at CBS This Morning. So it is news. It's talking about a news anchor. I would say that's merely interesting. It doesn't really qualify as something that we need to know in order to live our lives better. LACMA and the Autry Museum announce a partnership. Merely interesting. I don't think that's really groundbreaking in any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so let's skip local news. The Schlow Library, that's our local library, set to reopen. That's public interest because a lot of people are going to want to go to the library. They need to know when the library is open because it's been closed for the last few days because of some problems that they've been having. To cut the cord or not cut the cord, I don't know what that means, so I'm just going to skip it. Not known for subtlety or nuance, Trump is handling Iran just right. Obviously, Iran and the relationship with Iran is a big deal. So this one would go with public interest because it does affect how we live our lives and the decisions that we might make. Our local school district is still deciding whether or not to change the policy on elementary school homework. public interest. A lot of parents and teachers and kids need to know that, and it's very important for a lot of people. My next category is New York Times. I just have stuff that rolls up from the New York Times. Their daily list of articles comes up. The checkup, do parents make kids fat? I'm going to go ahead and say this is public interest because it's looking at the obesity epidemic and what role parents can play in that. And yeah, that's obviously of interest to a lot of people. Why even tougher regulations on smoking are justified? That would be public interest because it has to do with public health. The smoking in public places affects not just the person who's doing it, but also secondary smoke affects others. We know that there's a link between smoking and cancer. That's public health. So then I have a category for NPR, same thing. It just rolls up, NPR rolls up. Here's photojournalism, photos about the storm. That would be merely interesting. Probably not something that we need to know to make decisions on a day-to-day basis. A photographer's search for magic in everyday life, also merely interesting. I think people would be really interested in that. It probably has some very profound things to say, but not something we need to know on a day-to-day basis. So my next category is stuff that's happening in higher ed. So anyway, I think that's enough. You get the point of how to go about thinking through things. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to look at the articles that you've selected and kind of give you my gut level reaction to things. But also remember that it really depends on how you justify it. You may find an article that I'll tell you it can go either way, and it really is up to you to justify whether you think it's merely interesting or public interest and why. So let me know, and I'm happy to go over things with you.